Hi, I'm a forester here, and my knife collection is still growing. It seems like I've added a lot of knives to it over the course of this past year, but the knife that I'll be reviewing today is this Chris Reeve Small Sebenza. I've had it for probably about a month, and if you've watched closely, you've noticed this knife in a couple of videos that I've made just recently, but this will be my formal review of it. I have it next to this Pentel mechanical pencil just for size comparison right now. But let me bring in a better comparison, and that's the Chris Reeve Large Sebenza. I've had this knife for probably over a year, and I've done several videos of it. This is a better comparison because really these are identical knives in almost everything other than just size. I think probably the Large Sebenza came first, and then the Small Sebenza was a miniature copy of it. The Large Sebenza is a great knife. I've reviewed it, and you can get a lot of details from my previous videos about it. I liked everything about it except two things. The titanium handle had some tarnish right here in this area, and then it also had a sticky lock for a long time, but I've worked that out of it and adjusted the alignment of the handle scales, and now it's opening just fine, so I don't have any problem with it. Let me show you first off what came with the Small Sebenza, and of course it comes with a pouch. It says Chris Reeve on that side, and think twice, cut once on that side. I've decided not to use this pouch with the Small Sebenza. I do use the pouch that came with the Large Sebenza and carry it that way, but I decided to use the clip with the Small Sebenza. It also comes with a birth card. It says Small Sebenza 21 wood inlay. It's S35EN steel, 58 to 59 Rockwell hardness, and of course it comes with a titanium handle. Now, I wanted to get a different wood. I like the Honduran rosewood of the Large Sebenza better, but I wanted to get something different, so I got snakewood inlays on this knife, and this one was made July 27th, 2012. Now, I'm not going to go over all the features because as far as the basic construction and all, it's very similar to the Large Sebenza. You can watch that review if you want a lot of details. But I will go over a couple of things that I like in particular, and one is the jimping. I think that the jimping on the Sebenza is perfection. The other feature that I really love on Sebenzas is this rounded spine, and I wish all knife makers did that. I think that really adds a touch of class to the knives. Quality of construction is perfect. Now, the feature one thing that I did find less than perfect on the Large Sebenza was the finish on the titanium. There's no problem with this knife. The finish is perfect. So they got it right on this one. I don't know. I would expect that this is more customary of what you get with the Chris Reeve knife. Maybe the finish on the Large Sebenza that I got was out of the ordinary. The other thing was the sticky lock on the Large Sebenza. This one right out of the box did not have a sticky lock at all. This one operates to perfection and it opens very smoothly. So as far as I'm concerned, this Small Sebenza is close to perfection, closer to perfection than the Large Sebenza. Let me give you a better shot of these zebra wood inlays. Like I say, I like the Honduran rosewood better, but these are nice. They're a close second. Now, this isn't perfect, and I'll go over the one thing that I would do a little bit differently, and that's this clip. I said that I made the decision to use the clip instead of the pouch. I may regret that, but on a trip recently, I was driving a minivan, and it was a smaller door to get in and out of. And I found at least 2 or 3 times that this clip sticks out enough to where it would scrape the door as I would get into the minivan. Now, it doesn't happen with my vehicles because they're a little larger opening, a full-size pickup truck, but I had a little bit of difficulty getting into the minivan and scraped it a couple of times, and each time I would search the knife and see, did I scratch it up or did I scratch the paint on the minivan. One time in getting out of the van, this clip caught on the seat belt and actually raised it. and it wasn't making contact. It raised it a good bit. It raised it to the point where it was annoying, where it rubbed into my finger when I actually used the knife. So what I had to do was I had to take this clip off, remove that screw, take the clip off and bend it back into shape. Now that wasn't hard to do, but what was hard was getting that clip back in there. And it really pointed out the tight tolerances that Chris Reeve has with his knives. And like a dumbass, what I did was I thought I was doing good. I couldn't get that clip back in. The tolerances were so tight. So what I did is I put it in place and then wrapped it with cloth to protect the finish, and took a pair of pliers and thought I could just put a little pressure on this right here and pop it into place. If I was very careful, well, what I ended up doing was cracking this wood right there and leaving the teeth marks of the, I don't know if you'll be able to see that, but leaving the teeth marks of the pliers in that wood. So what I ended up doing, and I never got it back into place, the tolerances were just so tight, what I ended up doing was carefully positioning the clip and pulling it into place with the screw by tightening it up. And the quality of that screw was such that it pulled the clip back into place. And everything is fine now except for some scarring and the cracking on the wood. But I felt like sending this back to for spa treatment after having it for like 2 weeks, which is probably a record. But I decided to live with it, and you know, it's one of those things that's like getting a new car and then putting a scratch on it. You stop worrying about it, and that's sort of how I'm viewing this. Now, the main thing that I wanted to talk about was the size of the knife, because what I've found is that a full-size knife is just a lot more comfortable, and this is right on the breaking point between what I would call a full-size knife and more of a gentleman folder type knife. This is definitely in the category to me of a full-size knife, but the measurements on it, the blade is just under 3 inches. It's 2 7/8 is by my measurement, and a 3-inch knife, 3 to 3.5 is what I consider sort of a perfect full-size knife blade length. The handle is 3 7/8 inches long, and to me a 4-inch long handle is perfect because it gives me a 4-finger grip. Now you have to slide your hand down to fit within that curl right there, and so when I grip this knife you can tell that the end of the blade comes almost to the end of my pinky. And so it's just shy of a 4-finger grip, and I end up using that lanyard, and that's why I leave that on. But let me bring in some other knives and just give you a comparison. I brought in the large Sebenza, and of course that's definitely a 4-finger grip. So that's very comfortable to hold. Here's a knife that you've seen just recently. This is my Klutzli. It was pointed out I didn't pronounce that correctly, so instead of Klotzli, it's supposed to be Klutzli. And that again is over a 4-finger grip, very comfortable to hold. Okay, coming down in size, this is a Benchmade 940. Now the 940 has 4 3/8 inch long handle, and that's very comfortable to hold. When I hold it, I have a full 4-finger grip. Okay, here's one that you haven't seen in a while. This is a Spyderco Sage 4. This one's a little bit unique in that the blade length is shorter than any of these other knives that I'll show you. It's only 2 3/4 inches long, but the handle is 4 inches. Now, if you hold it in this manner, it comes up about like the Small Sebenza. But I never hold it that way. I usually choke up on it, and so you have a full 4-finger grip. I really like that knife. It's one of my favorite ones. Now comes the CRKT Ripple. This has a 3 1/8 inch blade and a 4 1/4 inch handle, so I get a full 4-finger grip. Now all of these knives I would say are in the full-size class. Very comfortable to use. Here's one that's very common. A lot of people have this knife, the Kershaw Skyline. It has a 3-inch blade, which is very similar. I'll lay this one side by side. Very similar to the Small Sebenza in blade length, maybe just a hair bigger, and it has just a hair longer handle. And it's very comfortable. When I put my finger in that finger choil, the handle sticks out from the back of my hand. So this is very comfortable. I have a full grip on it. The knife that I think is probably the closest to the Small Sebenza that I have is this one right here. This is a Benchmade Mini Griptilian. Now the blade length is just a hair shorter than the Small Sebenza, and the handle is just maybe a hair shorter. Let me lay those down for comparison. I know anybody that might be considering a Small Sebenza might appreciate this to know exactly what size knife they're getting. And the best way to judge that is not by the measurements, but how it feels in your hand. So this is the closest knife to it, and just to show you, if I grip the Small Sebenza, you can see that the handle comes to just almost the end of my pinky. It's not a full 4-finger grip. If I grip the Small Sebenza and put my hand in the choil, it does the same thing, maybe slightly smaller grip. So these knives are probably the closest of any two knives that I have, trying to compare the Small Sebenza. Well, you know, the Small Sebenza sort of finishes out what I intend to collect of Chris Reeve knives. I have the large Sebenza, Small Sebenza, and then the Menundi. And the way I view it, how I would conclude it, is that the Small Sebenza is a very classy workhorse of a knife. I haven't found any knife at all that would beat it in quality, and that's in terms of materials and quality of construction. And I would say you may want other knives. You might want the large Sebenza or the Klutzli, but this is the only knife that you would ever need. Y'all have a good day. Take care.